a little bit, because you've made a radio documentary series on morality in the current situation. Now, what you've said and what Jeremy Corbyn said attracts huge amounts of extraordinary abuse, particularly on social media, particularly perhaps on Twitter. To what extent do you think that we're living through a kind of age of anger driven by social media?
We've seen this confirmed by the report this week that 1/4 of 14-year-old girls have practiced self-harm. The average American kid, I'm not sure about Britain, spends between 7 and 9 hours a day watching a phone or tablet screen. And the empirical research tells us that the more hours they spend on the social media, the more depressed they become. Obviously, social media have other effects. They have the effect called the disinhibition effect, which means you could be much ruder electronically than you can face-to-face. So these are troubling syndromes, and we have to deal with them.
Rabbi, you've talked in your series about the outsourcing of morality. What do you mean by that?
For centuries, the West saw societies held together by a shared moral code that was lived out in families, communities, and in the public culture. 50 years ago, the West, and it happened pretty much simultaneously throughout the West, engaged in an unprecedented experiment, the outsourcing of morality to the market and the state. The market gives us choices, the state deals with the consequences of those choices, and other than that, what you did with your private life was whatever works for you, and so long as you don't directly harm others. There was a very prophetic sociologist 100 years ago called Emil Durkheim, who spoke about something called anomie, a society without a shared moral code. And he predicted that such a society would see a rise in suicides and personal depression on the one hand, and a lack of social cohesion on the other. Well, we've seen all those things happening in the West right now.
Most things go in cycles. Do you think this is a cycle that will be reversed in any way?
It could be. On the program, we have one expert political scientist who tells us that 100 years ago, the West was pretty much where we are now. A lot of income inequality, a lot of a feeling of groups being marginalized. We have become very much from a we society to an I society, the most individualistic society ever known historically, at least since 2nd century Rome. And I think we're going to have to become a we society again, and if we did it 100 years ago, maybe we can do it now.
Rabbi Sacks, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Thank you. Well, the shadow